Hey guys, thanks for watching. This is the Living in Atlanta YouTube page. This channel is going to be designed to give you a peek into what it's like to live, work, and play in the Atlanta, Georgia area. My name is Marc Brenner. I'm a real estate agent in the Atlanta area, and I'm going to be bringing you a ton of content if you're thinking about moving to Atlanta or even just visiting. This page is going to give you a great idea of what to do, what not to do, where to go, who to talk to. So let's get right into this video. Today I have for you pros and cons of living in Atlanta, Georgia. First up, pro, I have climate. So obviously this is a matter of taste. Some people prefer a cold climate. Some people prefer Florida, having it warm all year round. In my opinion, Georgia is a great mix between the two. It's a fantastic, mild climate. So we have long, hot summers. We have short winters, usually pretty rainy. Doesn't really get down below freezing very often in the winter, maybe a few weeks in total out of the whole year. Usually it's relatively short, cold, rainy winters. Spring and summer are typically gorgeous, usually right around the perfect temperature for weeks at a time. Tons of sunshine in Georgia. So overall, I think the climate is fantastic. Long summers, short winters, beautiful fall and spring. Con, I have bugs. So with that warm climate, there are a ton of mosquitoes in Georgia. You may be used to this, you may not be, but in the summertime, they will get you. Now, you could be one of those lucky people who aren't affected by mosquitoes, but I'm not one of those people. So I always have some DEET around. Screening porches are your friend. But if you live in Georgia, you're gonna have to get used to mosquitoes in the summertime because they are everywhere. Also with bugs, cockroaches. So if you don't like cockroaches and you're moving to Georgia, you better get ready, because it doesn't matter how nice of a house you live in or how clean your house is, you will occasionally see a cockroach. There are definitely ways to mitigate this. Gel bait is great. Keeping your gutters clean, keeping foliage away from your house is a great technique. But if you're moving to Georgia, you have to get used to the fact that you will occasionally see a cockroach. Pro, cost of living. So obviously this is going to depend a lot on where you're moving from. If you're moving from a smaller town or city, you may find the cost of living higher than what you're used to. But my guess is, for the majority of people watching this video considering moving to Atlanta, the cost of living is going to be way better than where you're coming from, especially if you're coming from a huge expensive market like somewhere in California or New York or the Northeast. So in my opinion, one of the best things about living in Atlanta is that you can still buy a beautiful, affordable house for a reasonable amount of money. Ask yourself, what could you buy for $500,000 in your market right now? In Atlanta, Georgia, you can buy a house like this for $500,000. This is a 6-bed, 5-bed house with over 5,000 square feet in a suburb that's close to Atlanta, safe, really nice area. So obviously your budget might be more than this, your budget might be less, and there are options available at all price ranges, but I would say on the whole, cost of living, whether it's your housing, your property taxes, and just your day-to-day expenses, is going to be much better than many parts of the country. Con, I have traffic. I'm sure you've heard of the Atlanta traffic. It's not quite as bad or notorious as LA or Washington, D.C., but it is bad. Obviously, this is going to affect you if you live more in town. If you're out in the country or a further suburb, it's going to affect you less. But on the whole, traffic is pretty bad in the Atlanta area. A lot of times rush hour can start at as early as 3:30 or even earlier, and not until 7:30, 8 o'clock. The other thing is, it seems like at any part of the day, whether it's 5 in the evening or 12 noon, you can run into a crazy traffic jam, especially if you're headed towards the heart of the city. 75-85 connector is notorious bottleneck area. So traffic can be pretty bad in Atlanta, especially with the accidents. It seems like there's always an accident at all times of day in Atlanta, which you will need to avoid. So traffic is definitely something to consider when you're moving down here. You can get smart once you know your routes. You can plan around traffic to avoid a lot of it, but it definitely can take up some hours of your life if you don't plan properly. Things to do. So there are a ton of things to do in Atlanta. Obviously, this is a huge metropolitan city. So if you're a city person, you like to do things in the city, we have everything any other huge city would offer. Great nightlife, awesome sports teams, concert venues, bars, drinks, dancing, clubs, great restaurants, anything that a typical city would offer. Atlanta has that. You also have tons of nature related things to do. There are beautiful parks, tons of hiking trails and places to enjoy nature. So you can have, the city life and everything that goes along with that. You can also have, the country life, whether it's hunting or camping or hiking. There's a lot of variety. There are a ton of things to do in Atlanta. You will not run out of things to do. There's the zoo, there's the aquarium, there's the botanical gardens, there are museums. There's an endless list of things to do in Atlanta. Con, I have housing competition. So there's a ton of people moving to Atlanta. We are in a seller's market right now, which basically means there is a shortage of inventory. There are more people looking to buy a house than are going to actually sell a house. So if you're in the market to buy a house in Atlanta, it can be very competitive, and you may put in offers and lose out to other bids. It's really important if you're moving to Atlanta that you connect with a great real estate agent who can put you in an advantage when you're in a situation where you're bidding on a house. And there are a lot of different ways to do that, but just know that it can be extremely competitive if you're moving here, especially in desirable areas where the majority of people want to live. So that's just something to consider. Pro, nature. So this is actually number one for me. This is my favorite thing about living in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a big outdoors guy. So if you're an outdoors person, there's a ton of great nature. I mentioned it before. You have the city life, but within a short drive, you have beautiful mountains. You have things like Arabia Mountain, Stone Mountain. You have the Blue Ridge Mountains to the north. So if you're into hiking or camping, you have tons of great options there. There are beautiful rivers in Georgia. Some of my favorites are the Chattooga River, the Tallulah River, whether you'd want to just go hang out there for the day, do some swimming or hiking or camping, or if you're into kayaking or canoeing, there are a ton of beautiful rivers in the Georgia area for you. Parks, there's beautiful parks like Grant Park and Piedmont Park. There are a ton of beautiful green spaces. Atlanta is known as City in the Trees. There's a ton of beautiful nature-related things to do in Atlanta. It's my favorite thing about living here. And not only do you have everything in Georgia at your disposal, but you're a short drive from the Carolinas, from Tennessee, from Alabama, which all have beautiful nature-related activities in their own right. Con, schools. So obviously there are great schools in Georgia, but overall Georgia ranks 31st among all the states with quality of school. So it just means you're going to need to be strategic. If that is an important factor for you, you're raising a family, you need to know where the good schools are. You need to understand what the charter of options are that are available to you depending on where you live. So it's not to say that there are not good schools in Georgia, but comparatively, we are ranked in the bottom half for schools K through 12 overall. Not meant to discourage you, just a reality, and it just really means you need to do some planning and researching if you're thinking about moving here, because you want to know exactly where you need to be to have your children attend a great school. All right, guys, that's all I have for you today. Pros and cons of living in Atlanta, Georgia. I really appreciate you watching. If you found this useful, please click like, please click subscribe. I'm going to be putting out a ton of great content specifically about what it's like to live, work, and play in Atlanta. Thanks so much. Bye.